That's pleasure.
French smugglers?
I don't take German money for catching French.
Monsieur Colbert, Madame, how nice of you to call. Madame Poiret will be so delighted to see you. Come this way. Gaston, forgive me, Madame. We need German ice-ice.
Mademoiselle, I presume you wish to speak to my husband privately. Perhaps I might go upstairs and see Madame Poiret?
Yes, of course. Do go straight up. I'm sorry, Gaston. Do sit down. We have a problem. The children with Leloup are going to Switzerland tomorrow afternoon. Claude has no documents for them. They're posing as foreign laborers going to Besançon. We need 6 German Ausweis documents. Can you help?
6? Well, possibly.
First thing in the morning?
I'll try, but there isn't...
Thank you. Can I pick them up from you outside the Café Max at 10:30?
Very well.
Put them inside your newspaper as before.
Give me the names.
And then he says, suddenly to my left, there was a sheer drop where the mountainside disappeared into the darkness. Now, there is a path that the smugglers use. As you can see, that's on the north side of the mountain. That would mean that the drop would be on the right and not on the left.
Now, could it have been around here?
Well, so the next bit says, far below us, a pair of headlights crawled along the zigzag road. German, said my guide tersely. Now, I think that's going to be the road which reaches the frontier here at Arnegy. You can see there aren't any other roads around for about 15 kilometers. And Germans don't use these other roads because they just lead up to mountain villages. And the Arnegy road would fit in with the time they took.
Well, it's starting at night.
Well, late at night. Smugglers don't like to run the risk of bumping into the odd drunken German soldier.
Yes, now, there's something very important about the sun. Ah, yeah. The sun's first rays fell on the outstretched arm of our guide. Down there, he said, is Spain. To me, it meant freedom. Yes, then 20 minutes later, we staggered into the deserted streets of Padoma. Oh, it's a made-up name. A small town set in a valley. I could have cried when I saw the advertisements in Spanish.
Yes, well, if it really does mean 20 minutes, then they were well inside Spain when the sun's first rays fell on the outstretched arms of his guide.
Yes, well, now, at that time of year, the sun would rise at 4:30.
No, it's later down here. Well, it takes time to climb up over these mountains. But if this Padoma place really was in a valley, then they must have crossed the frontier at least 2 hours before.
Yes. Also, they could see the ocean. As we breasted the top of the pass, there directly ahead of us were the cold waters of the Atlantic Ocean, glittering in the dawn air.
So the pass was heading due north, or almost.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they must have been 20 or 30 kilometers inland. You can still see the Atlantic from there if you're over 2,000 meters up. But if you go further inland, then all you can see are just the tops of other mountains.
Yeah, and finally there's the river. The river that shone below us seemed to me like an arrow pointing west, to liberty and to home.
Yes, well, that has to be the bit of Thurm. You can see that runs west before it turns north into the sea. Now, I think they started somewhere within that area there, yes?
Yes.
Assuming, of course, that the American didn't make the whole thing up.
Yes, assuming that.
Well, I shouldn't think there are more than 1,500 houses in that area. Not counting the odd hut on the mountains.
Well, he has described the house a little.
Yes, I sent a message to the police in the area asking for details of any house answering the description.
What did you say?
I just said that we'd heard that such a house was being used for smuggling. What else?
André seems very depressed. Perhaps Albert should devote more time to her and less to other things.
Well, I'm afraid the cafe needs attending to. Albert won't be very long. Please excuse me.
No, you've hurt her.
I can't see why.
Oh, please, my dear, you're not usually so obtuse.
Well, Gaston, I want you to stop all this. Please. Think of me sometimes. Whenever you're away longer than expected, I go through agonies. It's the same with Lisa. We hardly ever see her these days. What's she doing? Alice would never forgive me if she knew. God rest her. Gaston, how can you let her, your own brother's daughter?
Louise, listen to me. I purposely told you nothing so you're not involved. Lisa is 24. She must do as she thinks fit. I have no right to interfere. My dear, would you have me ignore our country's suffering and just accept these barbarians?
Yes. Yes, Gaston.
All right. Now, what do you make of the descriptions of the people who helped him escape?
We have Dr. Moret, described as tall, fair-haired and elderly. The nearest Moret lives in Bayonne. He's a florist. And then his wife, Françoise, described as petite, and 2 children. There's no sex given, but they were asleep in bed when the American arrived.
Oh, he arrived in time for supper. Described the meal. So presumably they're quite young if they're in bed by then.
And then there's the Basque guy, described as tough, wiry and unshaven. Well, that's a stock figure. Could be anybody.
And finally, the man with the furniture van, who helped them on the last lap to the doctor's house. Now, he's described as young, fair, with a moustache.
Tell me, how many fair-haired men have you seen since you've been down here? You know, I think there are fewer fair-haired men around here than there are Negroes. I've only twice seen a Negro. But of course, when a criminal does want to confuse the police, he sometimes describes people as being exactly the opposite of what they really are. Well, that's one way, at least, in which you can be consistent. So perhaps we ought to think that our Dr. Moret is really small, dark, and young. That'd fit in better with the young children anyway, as elderly doctors don't tend to have them. Petite Françoise will probably be big, probably even bigger than her husband.
Agreed. Now, also, the American writes about having to visit a patient. I mean the doctor having to visit a patient. Otherwise, the people in the village would have been suspicious, you remember? So, presumably, he is a doctor of medicine.
Oh, perhaps.
Well, how many doctors are there in the area?
4 or 5.
Can you check it?
Yes, but not through the police. They would only get back if I started asking questions about doctors.
If you're right about the descriptions, the man with the furniture van who's
Well,
young,
they don't use furniture vans around here. Just any lorry that happens to be available. So I think we should be looking for a lorry driven by an old, dark, and almost certainly clean-shaven